It's time for SportsZone. I'm your host, Joslyn Mitchell, and as we wrap up the season with our final one-hour show, we're talking about the history-making Mean Green sports, college ball, NBA, NFL, and much more. Joining me, I have Shelby and Desmond. How are you guys doing?
Good,
great. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm ready to get started. First off, we're going to start on some soccer. Our Mean Green soccer team fell to the Texas Longhorns this past Friday. The Longhorns set the tone of the game the first 20 minutes of scoring. Texas was able to break through a Mean Green defense that has only given up one goal in its last 4 matches. The ending score was 3-0. I honestly think that these girls had a good run. I mean, they went again undefeated at home, and they made their 13th CUSA title. But what do you think went wrong as far as going against Texas?
I mean, it's just they went up against the top team.
Yeah.
Texas has been lights out this season, and they were actually the last D1 school to take a loss on their year. So I think they just met up with some great offensive weapons like Sierra Hinston and Haley Berg, and it was just a little bit too much on the day.
I agree with Shelby. I think Texas was just a bigger, stronger, more physical team, and we just ran into them, and unfortunately, we just had to go home. But we had a great year. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
We fought hard, and we'll get it next year.
I think it was unfortunate because I was really counting on them. Because, I mean, everybody else was making history. I just wanted them to, too. But, okay, going into next season, we have Kat leaving. We also have Tori Phillips leaving. They have 64 wins together. What do you think we're going to do without them? Can we still go undefeated at home for another year and get our 14th title?
Oh, I think we're very capable of going undefeated and repeating as title champions. We have 7 seniors on the roster, including Taylor Torres, who is our lead goal scorer. So I think we'll be just fine, and I think we'll make another run for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think I'll be fine, like what Shelby said as well. Coach Hudlin's going to have this team prepared. They're going to be ready. We have a lot of depth. We have 15 underclassmen this year, and it's just another year of experience to go through. So
I think it's cute how when they were in their interviews, they were showing off their rings. They're actually the first class to have 4 rings and have won a title all 4 years of college. So congratulations to those 2 girls. Now we're going to switch over to volleyball. Our football team was not the only sport that made history this homecoming weekend. Our Mean Green volleyball team also clinched their first division title, defeating Western Kentucky for the first time since 2008. That is a big deal. I mean, homecoming was already a big deal with the floor caving in apartments, but I mean, we just took it down with all types of things. What can you guys say about these girls? This is a big deal because we haven't beat them in a minute. And we already, for the second straight year, we were predicted to finish 6th. So what do you say about that?
It's a huge win for this team. It's a huge win for this program. They're leaving their season with a 14-match unbeaten streak. I mean, this is impressive for them and for our school. And I'm just glad they could keep up their intensity because in the beginning of the year, we were all hyping them up. And I'm just glad that they could continue that kind of success throughout the year.
And I think that this was a really, really big turnaround because last year they wasn't even that good.
yeah, we weren't that good at all, and to only take 2 losses on the year is amazing. It's just amazing to me. We were led by our seniors, Amanda Chamberlain, Holly Meadlam, and Carly York, who have first Conference USA honors. And we also have Alexis Wright, who got second Conference USA honors. So I think we should have a great chance at Conference USA tournament this year.
Quick question. Do you think that there's a difference, what difference, because obviously there's a difference, from last year that happened this year? Because that is a big turnaround. I don't think we can just go overlook that.
I think it's the experience and the depth. Like Desmond just named, we had incredible seniors this year, but you also bring in the mix of the freshmen. They were great contributors this year with Ibarra, who was a great, solid defensive player for us, and we also had Valerian and Barbertica, who had more than 200 kills on the season. So that was just a mix of a great team that we had this season.
Now we're going into the tournament as number 1 because we finally defeat Kentucky.
Yeah.
So is there anyone else that we may have to fear?
I think we have no one to fear. We've pretty much beaten every team in our conference. Not many teams have taken us to 5 sets. Our defense is great. I don't see why we shouldn't be in the championship game face Western Kentucky.
I absolutely agree. We're going to meet Western Kentucky, and it's just going to be on us to continue this intensity and make sure that we're not toppled by the revenge that, that they're going to have motivating them coming into this match.
And besides those players, because, I mean, majority of the people that we were talking about are seniors, were there any other, people that are shining out but are not quite there yet, but you think can come up in the future?
Valerie Valerian is one. She played great this year. She attacked really well. Her digs were really good, and she did really good defensively with her blocks. So she's one person to look out for in the future. One
person I am going to miss is Alexis Wright. And I don't think we talked about her enough. But this woman, the times that I have talked about this sport, I have talked about her finishing the set on both times. She finished it the last time I talked about it, and then she got us our division title. So I just think that that's a good job. What about you?
I mean, she's a clutch player, and we're absolutely going to need her for when we face Western Kentucky in the finals and when we go into NCAA tournament. She's someone to be relied upon, and she's shown that she can step up in those big moments.
Yeah. Going into, actually, do you guys think we have a shot going into the NCAA tournament this year?
I think we have a nice shot, but I'm not going to be too optimistic because obviously there are other teams out there who are more skilled athletically, and I just think we could maybe get to the third round, but that's about as far as I could see us going.
Hey, anything can happen. I mean, homecoming. But, hey.
I agree with Desmond. I mean, we have a tough time beating Western Kentucky, and even when they go into the NCAA tournament, they have trouble advancing too. So it might be an early knockout for us, but it's still an accomplishment that we should celebrate.
Yeah, I think so too. Real quick, do you see us continuing this success next year? Yes or no?
Yes, most definitely.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Stick around. More Mean Green Sports after the break.
Start a story. Adopt at theshelterpetproject.org.
I'm a retired school psychologist, and helping people was my thing. After my stroke, when Meals on Wheels started, I was on the other end of the stick, so to speak. And I appreciated it very much, the attention that was given. My name is Julia Skanes, creative writer, poet, photographer. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
The North Texas women's basketball team is soaring up the charts by blowing out their first two conference opponents, making their record 2-0. Joining me, I have Kennedy and once again, Shelby. How are you guys?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now let's get started on this team. I think that they're starting off well. Our girls are doing phenomenal. So far, we're undefeated. What do you guys think?
Well, I think the first two games in non-conference is against Mid-America Christian, I think, and then Texas A&M International. And so those are games that you should win. I think if we had to look at something, I would say that the ladies need to stop turning the ball over as much. They're averaging 14 turnovers a game against two non-conference opponents who really aren't that good. And also, they need to shoot the ball better from three-point line and from the free throw line. They're shooting 29% from the free throw line and around 27%. They've only hit 9 threes out of 41 tries from the three-point line. So these ladies need to stay in the gym. Before practice, after practice, we saw on Twitter last night Lauren Holmes stayed after the game to put up some more shots. She didn't really have a good game. So those are the type of things that they need to work on to stay successful throughout the year.
I'm going to be a bit more positive than Kennedy is because I think they came out and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're handling teams like they should. They beat Mid-Christian by 30 points, and then they beat Texas A&M by 20. So they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the message is clear. You know, they're making a statement. They're coming out early, and they're playing lights out.
Yeah, and I'm kind of piggyback on, Shelby. You was a little harsh on them. They're doing really good. Their big men are handling up. Michaela Buckner had 20 points last night. She was doing a really good job, and I was actually there to witness how phenomenal those girls were. But speaking of Lauren Holmes, do you think that she has a good shot at being the future of this team?
I definitely do. She's a true freshman, so she's coming in. She hasn't redshirted. She's just coming in straight from high school, and she's just playing against Division I opponents. This girl is the type of player that is a championship player. She has championship DNA, as they would call it. She dives on the floor. She fights for every loose ball. She almost went into the stands last game fighting for a loose ball. And so those are the type of players that you need where your team might not be as skilled as another team, but if you have a couple of those girls to dive on the floor, to go after loose balls like that, those will be 3 or 4 wins that maybe you shouldn't have got, but you ended up getting because you fought for it a little bit harder.
They have really, really good hustle, and I like that. Now we're going to switch over into the men's basketball. The men's basketball team had a great start with a 3-digit victory against Eureka College Friday night, with a final score of 122-65, but fell short on their first game on the road versus Nebraska with a final score of 86-67. So you can state the obvious, but can you tell me what was the difference between these two games?
Better opponent, basically. And also, we just got into too big of a hole in the beginning of the game. In the first 8 minutes, they went on a 25-2 run. And so that was just too big of a hole to overcome. And I just think it's just because of the chemistry of the team right now. That's why they weren't clicking so much when they are faced with a better opponent.
And in the second half, they played a lot better. They actually outscored Nebraska in the second half. One thing that I'll take away, stop fouling so much, okay? 3 players fouled out. 3 more had 4 fouls. Stop fouling. I know the refs, they added some new rules this year where you can't do some of the things that you used to do before, but this is unacceptable. Okay, A.J. Lawson is only averaging 4 points a game because he's got 9 fouls throughout the year. Stop hacking. Stop doing all of this, and it gives your opponents another chance to go to the free throw line and gives them easy points. And so when you can take them off the free throw line, you have a better chance to win the game.
Okay, so now it's game time, my favorite part of this block. We're doing What Would Coach Do? So you're going to be playing Coach McCaslin, and you will be Coach Mitchell. Okay?
The winner,
So our first question is, we are going for the Conference CUSA title, and A.J. Lawson gets injured, God forbid, or Terrell Bradley gets injured, God forbid. I need some wood to knock on. Who can you put to step up to help us guarantee this title?
Well, I think 2 guys that come out to me are Roosevelt Smart and Umoja Gibson. Roosevelt Smart is from Chicago. He plays like a Chi-Town guy. He plays like D-Wade, Derrick Rose. No shot is a bad shot. We love the mid-range jumpers. He's lighting it up lately. And Mo is a freshman. He's also a true freshman like Lauren Holmes, and he's shooting 40% from three-point line. He's averaging 14 points a game. He's solid. So I think A.J. Lawson, who's only averaging 4 points a game, who hasn't necessarily lived up to his name, Umoja Gibson and Roosevelt Smart have kind of picked up the slack for him right now.
Perfect.
For us, it would be Michaela Buckner. I mean, we saw what she could do when both our main scorers fouled out early. It was Bradley and Holmes that went to the bench. So Buckner stepped up, and she dropped 20 points and 9 rebounds on the game. So I think we'll be fine there. And also, I think our bench is going to come up strong with the women.
And our big girls, we always can count on them. Next question, real quick. Offensively, we're doing good. Defensively, we're struggling. What will be your solution?
Team defense, more communication, being on a string, talking to each other more.
Perfect.
To me, I think our leader in our defense would be Grace Goodhart, who had 4 steals yesterday night against Texas A&M International.
Yeah, she hustled. I think that was perfect. Both of you had some really good topics. You had some really good decisions. Thank you so much for being here. Don't go anywhere. NBA Talk is next.
Oh, emojis. I thought the conversation just got dumber.
Ugh, internet trolls. Just ignore them.
I like you just the way you are.
I believe in you. She's a hugger. Give her a squeeze.
Help up the hand.
Ah, there you go.
Thanks, mate.
You're killing it, Jane!
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
We are back with the NFL. Last time we talked about Roger Goodell's contract, it was still being worked out. The update is it's still being worked out. Some of the demands in his contract reportedly includes $50 million per year. Now, do you guys really think that he's that bad of a commissioner, or do he even deserve that?
Well, you see, Roger Goodell, he's had a lot to deal with since he took over in 2006. He's had domestic violence cases, many, many suspensions, and he's had this protesting that's been going on for over a year now. And you got to give him credit a little bit for dealing with the protesting situation. He could have easily came out and said, you know what, no more protesting, stand for the national anthem, even though that's not what people are protesting. They're not protesting the national anthem, they're not protesting the military, they're not disrespecting them in any way. So I give him an all right job so far throughout his tenure.
You know, I gotta disagree with you on that. You know, he's gotten to a league where it's becoming a lot more progressive now. You take a look at the NBA model that they've been doing. They've become a lot more progressive. They've been kind of modernizing a lot better. Roger Goodell hasn't really modernized this league really at all. He kind of seems like a traditional kind of guy. He kind of holds the league back to what they were maybe, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s kind of. And so as the league continues to grow, you know, with these protests, with all these allegations against him and against other players, it's just he just hasn't really done a good job. And also, whenever there's like an accusation, let's say Ray Rice, he only got a 2-game suspension, excuse me. Tom Brady, deflated football, he got 4 games. So when you have something like that, the guy who puts himself as a judge, jury, and executioner and doesn't really have a certain, I guess, program for everything he does, you know, that doesn't really show good leadership, and he really shouldn't get this contract extension. So
I definitely agree with you. And part of that is all of the problems that Peyton said was really good. But my question is, some of the controversies that he had and the issues that is causing this delay, what do you think could have fixed the problem? Do you think, what do you think he could have done as far as like the kneeling situation and the Zeke situation?
Well, what he really needed to do from that is have a certain way he wanted to handle it from the start. I mean, you see all these allegations he's gone through. He gives every single person that has a domestic violence accusation a different kind of suspension. And so if he just had a certain plan set in place from the very start, it'd be a lot better. But since he didn't have a plan, he doesn't know how to handle it. And you can tell, and he's just trying to cover everything up. And so if you give a guy who has domestic violence 2-game suspension, excuse me, and then a guy who had deflated footballs 4, and then you have Ezekiel Elliott where he may or may not have really done something. I don't believe he did anything. But you give him 6 games, you know, that's just, it's just really showing that he doesn't know what he's doing. So
and it was an ongoing
It's ongoing for over a year now. So
he keeps opening up doors that he can't afford to close. You know, he opens one door to allow this situation, but then this situation comes out and he changes out how he kind of runs the league.
He backs himself into a corner. That's all it is, really.
And I think that's horrible. Now let's go a little deeper into one of his situations, the Zeke suspension. The Cowboys suffered a terrible loss this past Sunday against Atlanta Falcons with the final score of 27-7. Dallas is faced with one of the toughest schedules yet, and without their leading running back, Ezekiel Elliott, what do you think they're going to do with the Philadelphia Eagles? Before you start, let me put this out here so we can see how this goes. Now, real quick, tell me what you think is going to happen.
You know, I kind of want to take that down because I'm actually a New York Giants fan, but, you know, I think the Cowboys will do all right. Last week, they had a lot of O-line problems, and they're still having some defensive problems. Whenever Sean Lee's not there, their defense isn't going to look that great. And so their running game is not going to be a huge problem. Dak Prescott has stepped up this year. He's averaging, like 230 yards passing per game at least.
Real quick, hate to cut you off, but let's get what you need to do. Yes or no? You think we're going to win?
Okay, I have 31-27 Dallas.
Great. This Sunday, we have you coming right up in NBA.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. Got it. No.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to savethefood.com.
I understand. I know it's not your typical resume.
Okay, well.
But candidate. But I've been working double shifts just to pay for books. I've been raising my 2 little brothers. I'm determined, driven, motivated. Isn't that what you're looking for?
Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org.
In the Eastern Conference, teams that we thought would be great are not looking so good, while other teams are rising. The Cavs are not doing well with its new members, but on the other hand, the Celtics are sitting at #1 with 13 wins. I have Connor and Kennedy. How you guys doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Well.
Doing real good.
So, okay, let's start with the Cavs, since I know you're looking forward to that. Are they still a playoff contending team?
Is LeBron James still on the roster? That's the question.
I'm finna walk off set.
Listen,
we're done.
This is the LeBron
Over.
zone.
It's November.
Starring LeBron.
It's November. We have the oldest team in the NBA. Our average age is 30 years old. We have families. The only thing we're thinking about in November is who's getting the turkey, okay? We're thinking about November, and then we're thinking about Christmas. We're not thinking about April. We're good. We have the best player on the planet. Now, in all seriousness, give me any other team that doesn't have their 2 starting point guards and their starting center. And you ask me, would they be struggling or would they be succeeding? And I would say they're on the lines of they would be struggling. Cleveland does not have Isaiah Thomas. They do not have Derrick Rose currently, and they do not have Tristan Thompson. With all of that being said, the pressure is still on LeBron James to make this team flourish night in and night out. And for the most part, he's doing so. They're at 500 right now.
What do you say about
He's as much as I hate to agree with him, he's absolutely right, because honestly, the Cavs always struggle at the beginning of the year. They always struggle at the beginning of the year. And plus, LeBron has a bunch of new teammates this year. Their bench is very deep, so they're going to do really well this year. But, I think they'll be fine.
And then on top of that, he's calling himself the king of New York with the Knicks situation.
Is he not?
He is.
So, we're not going to get into that. We're going to switch over to the Western Conference. The Western Conference, of course, the Warriors are sitting well as #1 with Houston Rockets right behind them. But can Oklahoma still be a contender for the playoffs and give Golden State a run for their money? That's the question. Do you guys still think that Oklahoma has it?
I think Oklahoma City is definitely going to make the playoffs. I think they'll be a top 3, top 4 team in the West. However, when I think about teams upending Golden State from being that #1 team in the West, Oklahoma City certainly has a talent. But I don't know if they have the requisite offensive firepower, if that makes sense. There's a lot of bad shots that are taken on that Oklahoma City Thunder team. Russell Westbrook took 18 shots in the 4th quarter by himself in a row last year.
Triple-double king.
Now, you've got Paul George, you've got Carmelo Anthony, but when you look at a team like Houston, who's got 2 of the best playmakers other than LeBron James in the NBA, the shots are better. They're three-pointers and they're layups. They're not contested mid-range shots that the Russell Westbrooks and the Carmelo Anthonys like to shoot. So when I think about a team that can knock off Golden State, I'm leaning more towards Houston than Oklahoma City.
I have to disagree with him. I think I got the Thunder going to the West Finals, actually. When you have 3 superstars that just come together just out of nowhere, no one expecting to get Carmelo, it takes them a while to gel. And this, like I said, is very early, and we're not even a 4th way done the season yet. It's still very early. So it's going to take them a while to build that chemistry, but I do got them going to the West Finals. Maybe giving the Warriors a little run for their money. Probably not, though, but we'll see.
I mean, Carmelo has been there for a minute. So about this tanking situation, as far as like the Mavs, do you think that actually is a good strategy? Do it work?
Of course it does. You see what's going on in Philadelphia right now. They trusted the process, and Mr. Embiid and Ben Simmons are putting on a show every night. It's giving fans something to cheer about. Now, the Mavs have already found their gem. It took Philadelphia a couple of years. There's the Jahlil Okafor picks, the Nerlens Noel picks, but they've already got Dennis Smith. You can get the number 1, number 2, number 3 pick. Duke Blue Devils have a man named Marvin Bagley, and you should secure the bag for Mr. Bagley. Okay, there's a man in Missouri named Michael Porter who is also a budding star. If you could tank and get those guys, Dirk could go out the door slowly, and Rick Carlisle's a great offensive coach. Now you've got 2 superstars in Michael Porter or Marvin Bagley and Dennis Smith Jr. That's something to give Mavs fans something to cheer about.
Yes, it gives us someone else besides Dirk. All we're playing and thinking about is Dirk.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I hope the Mavs tank. I don't know if they're gonna I don't know if they're good at tanking. Like they lucked out with Dennis Smith Jr. I'm not even gonna lie. When you have the 9th pick, you don't really get a good pick.
Very true.
Dennis Smith should have been in New York. LeBron's absolutely right. He should have been in New York. And then, the Sixers, I'm proud that they finally trusted the process and they're finally getting their stuff together, but who knows how long they're going to be healthy. I got them tapped out at 40 games, and B goes on IR. Ben Simmons goes.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Tanking saves lives. There's no reason in being a middle-of-the-pack NBA team. The Phoenix Suns are terrible because they're always a team that can kind of get to the playoffs but kind of can't, but they never have a top 5 seed until this past year when they got Josh Jackson, which is the start of their franchise. But when you're in a middle-of-the-road team, you can't get any free agents. The Mavs have whiffed on getting Dwight Howard, DeAndre Jordan, all of these guys. So you have to tank to get somebody in the draft.
Yeah. I think that's really good. Who do you guys see being on the ending at the championship? Real quick.
Warriors Cavs part 4.
Are you kidding me? I see the Cavaliers getting there, and I see them winning.
I just want to say thank you all for joining me, and thank you all the audience and everyone that was joining. We will have the rest next.
I rescued Toast from a shelter in 2011. I love Toast because she's a lazy diva. Toast does whatever she wants, obviously. She's sleeping right now. She's an epic snuggler. She's so comforting. She's so loving. Toast makes me laugh. When I walked into the shelter, I knew right then that she was special.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate, and it's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
Welcome back into SportsZone. I am Josh Conrad. Joining me here at the desk is Shaji and Malik. And guys, I hope you did not make any plans for December 2nd because the Mean Green are going to the Conference USA Championship game. And of course, this new Denton, new attitude all started way back when Seth Luttrell first arrived here. And when he did arrive, he did send out a tweet as a new head coach. The tweet said, quote, "Love bowl season, but this will be the last year the Mean Green football does it at home," end quote. Now, who would have thought he could have exceeded expectations so far? The tweet, we're not only going to back-to-back bowl games for the first time in 13 years, but the Mean Green clinched the Western Division title this past weekend with a 45-10 win over UTEP. Now, Shaji, let's go back to that UTEP game. Take me through what you saw in this game and how that game played out.
I was a little nervous about that game. Going in, last year we had that heartbreaking loss, and 2 years ago we got absolutely destroyed 66-7. And that game, just everybody was just doing amazing. Mason Fine went 23 of 35. He had 213 yards. He threw for 4 touchdowns. He looked comfortable. He wasn't rushed. He was doing amazing as usual. Jeffrey Wilson finally popped up. I've been waiting for him to pop off, and he finally had that game where he had 20 carries. He had 144 yards. He had a touchdown. The only error that we had that game was that he fumbled and unfortunately got returned for a touchdown. Otherwise, UTEP would not have scored at all. Rico Bussey Jr., he just looks like a freak out there. He just seems like the #1 target out there. So it was really good to see that the Mean Green, they're getting their confidence up going into that bowl game. So it was really good to see that.
And Malik, we'll go back to you. UTEP, not a great football team, but you still handle them. What does it say about North Texas North Texas knows they're better than UTEP. What does it say about a football team to fully dominate an opponent that you're supposed to beat?
Yeah, and it was a big game, homecoming, of course, third largest crowd in Apogee history. So for them not to have a poor hangover game with that, for them not to overlook UTEP, especially coming in next week playing Army, team who they lost to twice last year, I think it was just great getting it done with them.
Definitely a great win for North Texas. I mean, I'm going to have to change my plans for that Saturday, December 2nd, but I think it will be worth it to watch us play a 13th game. Now, you talked about Army. We look forward. They're 8-2. Army hasn't really beaten anybody so far this year. Now, they played Ohio State, didn't look great. Beat a Duke team that's kind of average. This team does not throw the football. They won a game this year without throwing the ball. It's caveman-style football. We saw them twice last year. We're going to see them this year. Some bowl games have us projected. Shaji, we'll go to you. This Army team that we've seen twice last year, what should we expect from them this weekend?
They're going to run the ball. There's no denying that. They're averaging 350 yards rushing a game. And, knowing North Texas, they've been struggling against rushing when it comes against good teams. So we have to step up in that game. We have to stop the run. If you stop the run, then they're going to pass the ball, and it's really easy to stop the pass on that game. And Mason Fine, Jeffrey Wilson, they have to step up. Jeffrey Wilson also has to rush the ball. He has to do it perfectly. He has to limit the turnovers. But the defense is really key here. They have to step up. They can't have mistakes.
And you says about the defense, what more does this defense need to do against Army?
Have to stop the run, and that's been a problem for the team a few times. UTSA at a point in the third quarter of the game, third into the fourth, were pounding us down. So you know what's coming with Army. Another big thing, though, is turnovers. Last year, when we played them in the regular season, 7 fumbles. This year, bowl game, we win the turnover battle, and we're only down by 7, lost the game in overtime. So I think that's even more big, and you got to match their scores every time.
You guys think we're going to get the win this weekend?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a picture. The Mean Green released some new helmets. Let's go ahead and pull that up. They are American-themed helmets. Those are the coolest helmets I've ever seen in my life. I thought the chrome with the green was really cool. Shaji, I know you're a big fashion guy. You're wearing the sweater vest here.
Thank you.
You got the cool-looking tie. What do you think of these helmets?
That's actually really cool. I mean, is there any way I can get that myself? I'd like to wear that to the game. Oh, darn. But it would be really cool if
Hard no.
Yeah.
We look forward. Obviously, we're going to the conference title game. It's most likely we're going to play Florida Atlantic. Is there any way we can win a rematch against those guys? Obviously, Lane Kiffin, DeAndre Singletary, the team is so explosive, so good. We saw how much of a mismatch it was the first time. Malik, we'll start with you. Do we stand a chance against FAU?
I think we stand a better chance this time, just coming off of the last time we played them. I think it was a hangover game, coming off UTSA, the big comeback, one of the biggest wins in school history. So to have that game, and it was getting cold out in Texas, go out to sunny Florida, maybe players took it a little lax. A few players were injured too.
Yeah. Right now, we're not a better team than FAU. When we faced them, we allowed 800 yards of offense. We had 3 turnovers. Our team just didn't look the same. I just feel our defense is not good enough to stop that rushing monster that it is. All 3 of their running backs are amazing. Their quarterback can run the ball as well. I just don't see us stopping them to win the conference championship.
So you guys are saying we should root for Florida International to somehow win the Eastern Division, maybe switch it up a little bit?
I'm going with Jeffrey Wilson. I think if we pound him more,
we can win the game?
Yeah.
I like Malik. He's a little negative side. I'm not digging that.
I'm realistic.
Enough doom and gloom, though. Mason Fine is having an amazing season. Now, if you guys remember last year on Mean Green Game Day, Shaji, I know you weren't here, but if you guys remember, I was like, who's the player to watch out for? And I said Mason Fine, and he's been great this year. So I'm going to take a little credit there. Here are some notable stats from him so far at North Texas. He is 7th on career passing yards already. The guy's a true sophomore. He is 5th on single-season passing touchdowns. He has 4 left this year to match that. 8th on career passing touchdowns. He's at 28. The leader has 69. He is 4th on single-season passing yards. He has 2,812 so far. The record is 3,103. Guys, is Mason Fine the greatest quarterback so far North Texas has had? And if not, can he get there?
He's not right now. He's a sophomore. He hasn't really. Even though he's having an amazing season, he needs to do more. Last year he had a lot of turnovers, but this year he's limited his interceptions. But you look at amazing quarterbacks like Steve Ramsey, who had total 7,000 yards. He has the most passing touchdowns of all time with 69. He's a 3-time All-Missouri Valley pick. He played in the NFL. I just feel Mason Fine has to win championships for us. He has to win something for us. If he ends his college career with no championships, I can't put him in those category with those amazing players.
And see, for me, I think right now UNT football is on the come up. UNT sports are getting as big. In a few years, we're going to be as big as we've been, and he's going to get 4 years to play quarterback. So I think at a point he will be considered the best in school history. even if no matter what he does in the pros, he's a great college quarterback. Toughness, he'll stand in the pocket, take licks, and he's a great leader too.
Definitely a lot to look forward with him coming back. It's been a great football season here in Denton all year long. But coming up after the break, we take a look at some of the individual players who are having pretty great seasons themselves. We take a look at the Heisman Trophy race next on SportsZone.
I'll never forget the day our landlord called and said, read your lease. No pets allowed. My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in a shelter. But this pit bull is ready for a new crib. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. Gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Go, okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
This is the moment I knew his future had no boundaries.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
Well, we are halfway through November, which means sadly another college football season is coming to an end. But while it does approach that end, we are this much closer to awarding college football's most prestigious individual award, the Heisman Trophy. Now, for most of the year, Saquon Barkley was the assumed front-runner. Some recent struggles in Penn State losing a couple games has pushed him out and brought in a new batch of guys. Baker Mayfield, Bryce Love, Khalil Tate, all hot on their tracks to pull that trophy. We welcome in Tyler and Kyle. Now, guys, ESPN has their Heismantology. They're giving it to Baker Mayfield so far. Tyler, give me your personal top 3 Heisman candidates.
Well, starting off at the bottom, a very underrated guy. People aren't talking about the freshman out of Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor. He's rushed for over 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns. I think the reason why a lot of people aren't talking about him is I think that Wisconsin is very undervalued in the Big Ten and the Big Ten as a whole, as you've seen a couple bad losses from teams like Penn State, Ohio State. He is just a freshman, though, but he has plenty of time to grow. Number 2, I think, of course, the 1 and 2 are pretty much consensus. Bryce Love, amazing running back out of Stanford. He's leading the nation in rushing, yards per carry, and touchdowns. I think the knock on him is he plays in the Pac-12. He plays on the West Coast. A lot of people don't get to see him, which is a big knock because people have to see you and people have to recognize what you do in order to win the Heisman. And then obviously I think the consensus number 1, everybody has him at the top of their list, is Baker Mayfield. Even though I hate to say it because I'm not particularly a Baker Mayfield fan, but he's second in the nation in passing yards behind a fellow Big 12 and Okie State quarterback, Mason Rudolph. But he's the best player in the country by far, and I don't think it'll be close. I think he'll run away with the Heisman Trophy.
You got top 3, Kyle.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a whole lot different. I mean, Baker Mayfield up at the top out of Oklahoma, the guy, you can look at his stats, 31 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a 202 passer rating, and a 92.7 QBR. The guy's been outstanding. But one thing that I look at with Baker Mayfield that kind of sets him apart from the usual crowd is, well, he was able to beat a number 2 at the time, Ohio State, on the road in Columbus, a big win for them, planted the flag in the middle of the field. He outdueled Oklahoma State, a team at the time that was number 11. That was also on the road in a hostile crowd with Bedlam, and then he pretty much dismantled a TCU team on his own. This is a game where TCU came in as one of the top teams in the nation, and Oklahoma really played better and above just because of what Baker Mayfield was able to do. Bryce Love, like you talked about, Pac-12 running backs, Pac-12 quarterbacks, they don't necessarily get as much love. Since 2000, only 2 players from the West Coast have been able to get a Heisman. Carson Palmer, Marcus Mariota. So those are the only 2 that have really been successful. Oh, yeah, I forgot about Matt Leinart.
So
Reggie Bush doesn't count anymore. But
yeah.
With that being said, there are not a whole lot of success in terms of being on the West Coast, especially as of late. And then my third one, Lamar Jackson, a guy who won the Heisman last year. And if you look at his stats, his stats are right around the same as what he had last year, maybe even better if he can continue to play well. It's just Louisville's kind of been pushed down the rankings. They've had a couple of bad losses, and that's really been the key for Lamar Jackson not being up in that conversation.
I think that makes people overlook like what he's doing. He's on pace to have very similar numbers to what he did last year.
Yes.
But it's just the fact that Louisville's taken, like you said, a couple bad losses, and I think that people want to see new blood in the Heisman race. That's how it is most years. We've only had, I think, one back to Archie Griffin in the late 70s win the back-to-back Heisman. It's just, you always want to see something new and fresh. I guess that's our society today. So.
And Lamar Jackson, it's interesting. He's the first player in FBS history with 3,000 passing, 1,000 rushing in 2 separate seasons.
You're copying off of my notes. I had that written down here, too.
I looked over. We'll switch over the Heisman. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see what happens these next couple weeks. But we look at the top 4. There was a new playoff ranking last night. Number 1, no surprise, it's Alabama. But number 2, it's Clemson. Clemson has a loss. They're not undefeated. Number 3 is Miami, who is undefeated. Oklahoma at 4, Wisconsin, Auburn, 5 and 6. Guys, should Miami feel slighted that Clemson is ahead of them despite Clemson having a loss?
I think definitely so. I mean, this is a Miami team that got one of the biggest wins of the season in a 41-8 beat down of Notre Dame this past weekend. A team that people have really been overlooking because, hey, they haven't played really anybody. They haven't been able to beat a good team. Well, they did just that. Notre Dame was a great team, ranked at number 3 in the rankings before being knocked down. But this is a Miami team that's a real deal, and I think they should be in that number 2 spot. Now, they're going to get their chance. The Clemson is going to be on the schedule whether they like it or not if they're going to continue to try and push for that playoff spot. And, man, it's going to knock one of the 2 out of there, but it is setting up pretty good for the ACC to have a team in there.
And, Tyler, really quickly right now, we have the Rose and the Sugar Bowl are the 2 playoff semifinals. We'll go to you first here. Who do you got in your Rose Bowl? Who do you have in your Sugar Bowl? End of year, not right now. Who's your final top 4?
Right now in the Rose Bowl, I have Alabama facing Wisconsin. And if they do match up, it's going to be the Alabama defense versus Jonathan Taylor. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think Alabama pulls it out 17-7. In the Sugar Bowl, I have Miami and Oklahoma, obviously the 2-3 matchup. And I think the Canes, I think they find their way back to the national championship. The U is back, people. The U is most certainly back. And, well, pending that they beat Clemson in the conference championship, but I sure hope it is.
You know, for me, I think you have to look at Auburn. I think this is a team that has to go through a Georgia again in the conference championship game. They have to go through Alabama as well. If they win those 2 games, they're going to be right up there. I think right now I would put OU versus Ohio State, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, Clemson versus Auburn. I think it'd be OU and Auburn in the championship game. And watch out.
Do you have
War
Ohio Eagle. State? Whoa.
War Eagle.
2 lost teams?
Yeah, no,
so
I definitely do.
Chaos.
Chaos in the last couple weeks. It's going to happen. You just watch.
2 lost teams.
Yep, I think Auburn's going to make it to the playoff, and I think they're going to win the whole thing.
Well, Kyle's crazy. Tyler, you went safe. We'll see if Kyle's right. We'll see how the rest of the year does go. But after the break, put on your ice skates because we're talking NHL. Peyton and Joey give us the inside scoops on all things in the National Hockey League. Coming up after the break.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes and you come to mine. This is it. First impression. My way in. But here's the thing. Can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Can one piece of paper really tell you my whole story? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or how anytime there was an opportunity, I was the first one to step up. Because I wasn't gonna let my life, my circumstances dictate who I was gonna become. And all of that determination, the commitment, the drive, that's me. And that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent like me.
SportsZone, Joey Catalano, Peyton Russell here. We're going to talk some NHL hockey, starting with the hometown Dallas Stars, who sit 3rd to last in the Central Division right now, a spot where Peyton, fans didn't really predict we'd see them at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a position where at this part of the season, you got to remember, it's November. It's not April. You know, they're 9-8 right now. They're in a playoff spot, but it's kind of a two-way team. They play exceptionally well at home, but on the road, they struggle. We saw how they did Monday night. They can't beat Winnipeg, which drives me insane.
Yep.
And I mean, it's just, but it's a season. It's part of the season where we'll be all right.
My biggest thing is that they're not very good against Central Division, and that was one thing when Ken Hitchcock came in. He wanted the Stars to be better within their own division because that's how you're going to get wins, and those are the opponents that you're going to have to go against when you get to the playoffs. So if I had to grade Ken Hitchcock right now, I give them a B+ because they're not where they want to be, but I do see a lot of improvement from last year. However, they got to win games in their own division, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you talk about the Central Division being so tough. St. Louis right there, they've made their statement right there. They're atop. I do believe they will come back to earth sooner or later. They're on a hot streak. Every team goes through it. But there's other teams in not just the Central Division, but in the Pacific Division as well, in that Western Conference, like Vegas, who's done very well.
Yeah, Vegas, definitely a team that no one expected to be where they're at this year. Just got off to a blazing fast start. Why has the Western Conference just seemed to have just flipped? Because last year you had the Blackhawks and the Wild at the top of the Central Division, and now they're on the bottom. Then you go out to the Pacific, the Ducks are on the bottom, and then you got teams like the Kings and the Canucks and Vegas, who no one really expected to be at the top.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give Gerard Gallant a lot of credit there for what he's been able to do. You're right, the Western Conference has been flip-flopped. Like I said, the season is still young. I think we will see teams go where they belong as the season fades out. But yeah, it's been kind of a shocker.
My biggest takeaway has been just what a coach can do, especially in Los Angeles and also in Dallas. You've seen so much change in both teams, kind of similar. The Dallas hasn't really had a whole lot of success as of late, but just a coaching change in any team can just change the energy in that room.
Yeah, I mean, bringing in Ken Hitchcock was, I think, a big move for the Dallas Stars. You know, just staying with a local team right there. I mean, he was the man right there hosting the trophy when they won in 1999.
Exactly,
I think his eyes are on the playoffs, and I don't think he's going to panic now. We shouldn't hit the panic button right now for sure. We're going to let the season phase out and see what happens.
A lot of people forget that Ken Hitchcock brought this team to 2 Stanley Cups, 1999 and also 2000, where they lost to the New Jersey Devils, a team that's atop the Eastern Conference right now, thanks to first-round draft pick Nico Hischier and just stellar goaltending from Corey Schneider.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the Eastern Conference, what about Tampa Bay? I mean, they have been absolutely amazing. Nikita Kucherov has been just outstanding, 16 goals in, 16, 17 games?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's been
the first
going
month,
off. He's been
crazy.
And the one thing that you notice about teams like New Jersey and Tampa is that they're getting scoring up and down their lineup. When you compare that to Dallas's huge problem is that they're not getting timely scoring from their second and third line. It's been all Ben, all Sagan, all Radulov, you know, and so we're kind of coming full circle here. But the teams that are successful in the league right now are doing things that the Dallas Stars simply are not.
Yeah, I mean, well, speaking of the lines, do you think there's something that we need to change? Do you think something Ken Hitchcock needs to change with that line? Or
Well, what happened the other day against Winnipeg, he separated Ben, Sagan, and Radulov and put them on different lines, and then you had scoring from all 4 lines. So it was the scoring was very deep in that game. And then he tried it again against Carolina, and that didn't work. So it's really just players got to step up. They got to be better. And guys like Radek Faksa, Matthias Janmark, Tyler Pitlick, those guys need to step up and score goals, and you can't put it all on the first line.
Yeah, I mean, another thing, what about Jason Spezza? 1 goal, they kind of say it's a goal drought for him. I mean, what do you see out of him?
I've been Jason Spezza's biggest critic this year, mostly just because, again, they paid him all this money to come in and help out, and he really hasn't performed the last 2 years. So, you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, he may be a nice guy, but there's got to be some other options out there.
Yeah, well, big thing I've seen so far this season is no overtime losses. I believe they had 12 last year, which really hurt them down the stretch. Believe in the Stars. They're going to do good this season.
Well, there you have it. We'll see if the Dallas Stars can make a push for the playoffs coming up.
And we will see if they make the playoffs this year. But coming up next, we'll talk Ren Baker and the strides UNT Athletics Department has been making lately, right here on SportsZone.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
It's a short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Find fun activities to do, like boating and biking, or camping and hiking, plus much more. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes, and you come to mine. This is it. First impression. My way in. But here's the thing. Can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Can one piece of paper really tell you my whole story? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or how anytime there was an opportunity, I was the first one to step up. Because I wasn't gonna let my life, my circumstances dictate who I was gonna become. And all of that determination, the commitment, the drive, that's me. And that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent like me.
Well, when most people hear the name University of North Texas, they might think of our music school or our award-winning jazz programs. They may think of Norah Jones, Dr. Phil, or that lead singer of the Eagles whose no one name they can ever remember. But after this week, they might still associate us to that one school they saw on Twitter that had a party that caused the floor to cave in. But what if I told you one day North Texas may just add athletics to something you associate into that name? Already this fall, the women's soccer team won the Conference USA tournament, the volleyball team won the regular season Conference USA championship, and the football team clinched a spot in the championship game as well. Now on top of all this, North Texas has released a master's athletics plan that includes new basketball, volleyball arena, a baseball field, and numerous other upgrades. North Texas is finally taking athletics seriously, and the reason for that may be 37-year-old athletic director Wren Baker. Now Kyle and Garren join me up here, and I know you guys have been around this athletic department a little bit. What can be said for the job that Wren Baker does?
There's no words that can describe it. What Wren Baker's been able to do in his couple, or I guess now just over a year here up in Denton, it's been outstanding. Now, he didn't hire Seth Luttrell, but he has been involved with contract extensions trying to keep Seth Luttrell here. But I think a lot of it has to go over to the head coaching staff for not just football, but for all of these other for all of these other sports. You look at the football team led by Coach Luttrell, Graham Harrell, guys like that who just came in with a completely different mindset of we're going to change the culture. The winning culture is what we're going to build here, and that's exactly what they've done. Coach Andrew Paoleo, and then, John Hedlund's been doing it for 23 years. So it's not anything new that North Texas has had. It's just the fact that finally it's starting to put itself into fruition.
And Garren, what else do we need to do? Obviously, we have the new athletics coming in, the new arenas, the new facilities, the nice field, all that. What more do we need to do to compete with other D1 schools in the area, like a SMU, like a TCU? What more can we do?
Keep improving on these winning seasons. More conference championships, not only in football, but just increasing the improvement. Maybe make a baseball team, get some more talented volleyball players. I know this volleyball team, it doesn't seem like they can get much talented than they already are, but football team, as long as they're improving, as long as the volleyball team is improving, basketball has already gone strides better. So they continue that, they're going to start getting some top recruits. They're going to be able to compete in these D1, these bigger D1 schools, just like SMU has.
And not to mention, they see things like Mean Green Game Day outside.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Make some recruits want to come in. We talk about fan support. I went on a rant a couple weeks ago about fan support because it's not been what it needs to be. This past week, though, was the 3rd largest crowd in Apogee Stadium history, which speaks tremendous values. UTEP is a terrible team. Who would have thought we would get 26,000 people in there for that? But what more can the fans do? We talk about what the athletic director needs to do, what the coaches need to do. What do these fans need to do to keep supporting this team?
Well, first off, they need to show up this week against a team in Army that North Texas has played 3 times in the past 15 months, a team that they played in a bowl game against last year. And, of course, look, best in the West. There's only so much that you can do as a football program to get people in those seats, and they've done everything as an athletic department and as a team to do so. But I also think you need to start supporting some of the smaller sports as well. Soccer's always had some great support, volleyball as well. But one thing that needs to really get better at getting fans to get to the games is basketball. You go to the Super Pit on women's and men's basketball games, the whole place is empty. Now, I'm not saying fill the place, but at the same time, it's a big arena. It just feels like there's 12 people in the crowd. Some games on different weeknights and such. You need to really kind of transfer that new Denton mindset to basketball as well. Hopefully Grant McCaslin, Jaylee Mitchell can do so, but I think basketball is a place where you definitely need to start.
Yeah, I mean, football, I mean, look at this. I mean, UAB, Southern Miss, UTSA, La Tech. I mean, these teams are legit top contenders who I thought UTSA was probably the best in the West for this season earlier on. But, I mean, North Texas has just gotten stride for stride with every single team and just coming out on top. A lot of big players have came through. Jeffrey Wilson, Mason Fine has come through. But, you know, volleyball, they've really improved as well. And I think as long as this continues, it's just going to go off with the last thing I say. I think a lot more fans are going to start attending. I mean, especially this bowl game and this going up against Army, it's going to be a big game. Need a lot of fans. And it seems like this team plays way better when there's more fans out. Going back to the Old Dominion game when UNT played, there weren't near as many fans as there was when they played UTEP. And just UNT just seemed to dominate that entire game.
Yeah. Winning solves everything.
And it's something I think you see when a football program's successful, it kind of carries over into basketball. And if the basketball program can keep that going, is that real or is that just something I'm thinking of?
No, I think it does carry over. I mean, you look at the success that North Texas has had as a football program. Football's the money-making sport. And you made a great point the other day before the UTEP game that you can't uproot different facilities, a new basketball arena, a new indoor facility. You can't uproot those things, even though coaches like Seth Luttrell might leave and go to a Big 12 or a bigger school. Even though players are going to graduate, the money that you spend on athletics because of the success that you've had from football and these other different sports, that's going to stick around and that's going to be able to propel you later on as the years go down. And as you get farther away from this specific time for North Texas, I mean, New Denton, it's going to stick around because of what success they're bringing right now, because of the different facilities and the mindset like we talked about for that 5-year plan.
Yeah, I mean, just as long as UNT, they've really gotten better at advertising all their programs, gotten better at not only just education-wise, but in the sports world, it's just gotten better and better.
Now, guys, we've talked about how good we're getting, how amazing we're going to be. Now I'm going to ask a serious question here.
Okay.
We're in the Conference USA. A couple of years ago, we were in the Sun Belt. We're kind of doing that upwards trajectory. TCU did that kind of upwards trajectory 20 years back or so with Gary Patterson. Is there any chance that this team could one day elevate themselves, maybe not into a power conference, but maybe the American Athletic Conference, maybe just keep going up? Is there any chance we can do it?
I think there's always a chance. I think there's certain things that have to fall into place. You have to have different types of, I guess, check boxes along the way to try and get to a spot like a TCU that came from one of those Group of 5 schools. But you look at the plan that North Texas had. They had all these great things, baseball, new facilities, soccer, track and field, all sorts of stuff like that. One thing I didn't see was expansion in the Apogee football stadium and whatever they're able to do there. They're going to put some extra scoreboards out there, but that's really it in terms of renovations there. You're going to have to start packing your stadium first before you start looking at, hey, maybe we can go to an American, maybe we can go to a Big 12, schools or different conferences like that. You have to be able to not only dominate your conference on the field, you've got to be able to sell tickets and put butts in the seats throughout the season as well.
I mean, a little bit off that. I mean, Rice University last season or 2 seasons ago was in the talks of entering Big 12. And, I mean, if you've ever been to that stadium, there is about 100 fans there, and they're all parents. And if they can be talked about going into the Big 12, UNT definitely needs to be talked about entering the Big 12. They have done everything right. They're increasing all of their facilities. They're adding more. They're adding a track and field. They're adding a baseball field. They're adding an indoor football field. But like you were saying, Kyle, is that, you know, when TCU entered into the Big 12, they really had to expand their stadium and had to make it into a whole bowl. So UNT have to look into that.
We'll definitely see there's some optimism here on the Sports Zone. And thank you guys for joining me up here. That does it for another season of Sports Zone. We thank you guys for tuning in all season long. I'd like to thank Kyle and Garren up here and all the analysts who appeared on the show this season. A shout out to Joslyn Mitchell as well, and a big shout out to our awesome producers and everybody else behind the scenes that make it possible every single week. If you missed any episodes or need something to hold you over during the break, check out our YouTube, NTTV Sports, for past episodes. Check out our Twitter at NT SportsZone for more information about when we return. And don't forget about Mean Green Game Day, 2 hours before every home game. And look out for a conference and a bowl game edition of that show. Have a safe and happy Thanksgiving, a great holiday season, and a very happy New Year. We will see you next year.